Happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Austin, and because this film is currently getting a sequel, I figure at some point I might as well cover at least one film that was released sometime this decade. I'm going to be reviewing The Black Phone. Directed by Scott Derrickson, and featuring cast that includes Ethan Hawke, as well as many other talents. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Based on a short story by Joe Hill, Stephen King's oldest son, the plot goes like this. The year is 1978, and in the suburban streets of North Denver, Colorado, a serial child abductor and killer known as the Grabber stalks the streets, picking anyone who shows up on his radar to kidnap and eventually murder. Enter Finney Blake, a young boy who lives with his younger sister Gwen and alcoholic father Terrence, of whom his wife had killed herself following a series of horrific psychic dreams. Finney is often bullied at school, often being defended by his friend Robin, and pretty soon, both are kidnapped, with Finney soon finding himself in a soundproof basement with a black rotary phone. The phone isn't just for show, however, as it's a communication method for all of the Grabber's past victims to contact Finney, helping to assist him to try and defeat the Grabber through several hints and pieces of advice when dealing with the man. And that's pretty much the setup. A boy gets kidnapped, goes talk to him for assistance, and among many other supernatural elements. Pretty straightforward to say the least. I dig it. And how it plays out will leave you on the edge of your seat, and you'll be invested to see how it all ends. Now we head to the production. Production began with Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill, who wanted to adapt Joe Hill's titular short story, The Black Phone, found in the horror anthology 20th Century Ghosts, which Derrickson came across just after its initial US release. Derrickson was more than willing to put the movie together, intending to have it be a faithful film conversion with the idea of its framing of the atypical serial killer story intriguing him, but couldn't think of any ideas of his own, so he put it on the back burner. Instead, he opted to boost his professional relationship with Cargill, which came from their work together on Sinister, and Derrickson's contractual obligations with the directing of the MCU film Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, with Cargill briefly pitching in as a replacement director for The Black Phone in that time frame, dropping it ultimately when Derrickson told him to wait until he was able to commit to the project. After resigning from the production of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness due to creative differences, Derrickson resumed his work with Cargill. To make the Black Phone's story more compelling, Derrickson utilized his upbringing in suburban Denver, Colorado as a driving force for inspiration, taking from people in his everyday life to help create the characters, their circumstances, and how the film showcases suburbia, which included a child whose mother was raped, murdered, and disposed of in a lake wrapped in phone wire, which just sounds like a Seven-style detective thriller crossed with a Lost Death Wish movie. Derrickson described the area he grew up in as a working-class neighborhood where if you weren't being whipped by your parents, you were fighting on your way to school, at school, and or on your way home from school, meaning it was a cesspool of violence. Because what would trigger Child Protective Services and multiple lawsuits nowadays would most likely go unnoticed in the 1970s, because unless it was borderline criminal, it was just the way things were. Anyway, Derrickson also saw the film as potential for a semi-autobiographical horror story due to the traumatic childhood experiences he was processing in therapy, and also took note of films like The 400 Blows and The Devil's Backbone for their depiction of resilience and kinship among children, which could explain how the end of this film mirrors this shot here. And now we move to the casting. For the casting of the Black Phone, agents scouted hundreds of child actors for the film's leads, ultimately casting Mason Thames and Madeleine McGraw as their first notable picks, with auditions being performed via Zoom because of COVID. McGraw was one of 4 possible choices for Gwen, and when a previous commitment to Disney's TV series Secrets of Sulphur Springs forced her to pull out, the producers delayed the Black Phone's filming to allow her to do her things and then commit to the project. Finney's casting wasn't as cut and dry as Gwen's, however, as it took months for the filmmakers to survey actors, starting with New York and Los Angeles talent agencies, then going to an open call before then receiving Thames' demo reels. And even though Thames wasn't an experienced actor, which made The Black Phone his debut, he was unique in the way he emoted and took direction. Meanwhile, because there was plenty of violence and profanity in the script, Scott Derrickson carefully broached the subject to Thames, McGraw, and their parents when preparing for each of their scenes. By early 2021, the featured cast included Jeremy Davies, Ethan Hawke, and James Ransone, with the latter two appearing in their second film together following Sinister, and both Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill did not have a particular actor in mind as the grabber in the previous drafts, but ultimately chose to send it to Hawke because they had a knack for casting him in their things. Hawke was hesitant to take the part, as he didn't want to be typecast as the villain, but decided to go through with it as Black Phone's story intrigued him, and the idea of the grabber being this masked figure further enticed him. Not to mention his experience with working on Sinister also laid the groundwork for deciding to play the part of the grabber. Hawke developed his performance by perfecting expressions in both voice and body, which Derrickson had no reservations for how the actor portrayed the grabber, because the moment that Hawke got a hold of the mask, he knew exactly what to do. Now let's get to the filming. In terms of the filming, principal photography commenced on February 9, 2021 in Wilmington, North Carolina, under the name Static. Wilmington has served as a filming location for films like Year of the Dragon, Blue Velvet, Manhunter, Trick or Treat, Evil Dead 2, Little Monsters, Weekend at Bernie's, The Exorcist 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Rambling Rose, Sleeping with the Enemy, Household Saints, the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie, The Crow, which was the center stage of Brandon Lee's tragic death, The Hudsucker Proxy, Empire Records, I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Jackal, Traveler, A Soldier's Daughter Never Dies, The Conjuring, Iron Man 3, and Scream 2022. A private residence was used for the initial location for interior and exterior shots, with a production base being exclusive to EUE Screen Gems' local film studio, namely stuff like the grabber's basement and adjacent neighborhoods. Estimates to perform the shoot ran between $16 to $18 million, with the budget partial being financed via a $4.7 million transferable tax credit on in-state costs from the North Carolina government. And other scenes were shot in the counties of New Hanover, Brunswick, and Columbus, with all of their filming ending on March 27, 2021. For the cinematography, Brett Jukiewicz was assigned the duties of filming everything after being given the script from his agent, all of which came after he wrapped up filming Scream 2022. Scott Derrickson approached Jukiewicz in mid-December 2020 to talk about the ideas that were raised when Jukiewicz read the screenplay, in addition to bonding over Jukiewicz's work on Ready or Not, also from the guys who did Scream 2022, which Derrickson was a fan of. And following some interviews, the producers formally contacted Jukiewicz in January 2021 for the job. Derrickson's idea for the look was to have it resemble a 1970s time frame, with source material deriving from New York set 1970s films, rather than just glean textural ideas for the establishment of the proper tone for the setting and storyboards, which according to Jukiewicz meant experimenting with color grading techniques to conceive a high contrast, muted, but not desaturated visual palette. To make this image quality real, and to mitigate the picture's range of hues, the filmmakers blended colors with specialized lookup tables, or LUTs, as they're called. Kind of surprised they didn't have a haunting considering they were using something called LUTs. Anyway, enough with the bad puns. The decisions regarding LUTs was contingent on how bright the sets were, an example being a dark LUT used for preserving the image palette of dimly lit basement scenes that was deployed by Jukiewicz. For the dream sequences, the camera crew shot them using the Super 8 format, of which Derrickson had a penchant for using, where they used Bolex cameras for the format. Bolexes were used by many people, including Steven Spielberg, Ridley Scott, Andy Warhol, Peter Jackson, Jean-Luc Godard, James Dean, David Lynch, Marilyn Monroe, and even Mahatma Gandhi. They prepared by experimenting with the utility of the footage in Kodak's color negative film stock, including the Vision 3 500T 5219 7219, Vision 3 50D 7203, and Vision 3 250D 5207 7207, where lighting determined what stock would be deployed for the shooting, and Jukiewicz had to reacquaint himself with the old way of movie making, as he struggled with using the Super 8 format at first, because, well, when you can use high-tech cameras or the camera on your phone for filmmaking, it makes getting back to using old technology very difficult. Now let's talk about the visual effects. For the visuals, they were handled by VFX Legion, which was their second collaboration with Scott Derrickson following Sinister 2. Boring! With the development starting in pre-production under the guidance of VFX Legion co-founders James David Haddon and Nate Smalley. Their work consisted of 200 shots of matte and digital compositing effects for the film, including green screen, set extensions, superimposed practical stunt effects, camera transitions, CGI, and rig removal. Minus Diana Rigg. She could stay. Maya, Nuke, Houdini, and Redshift, which just sound like the marshmallow dealers I had over here last night, were among the software utilized for all rendering and animations, and VFX Legion was also present on set for ways to make the shoot better and rectify any issues with the filmmaking. Of the effects team's assignments, one of the most complex was rendering the stunt of a grabber's victim's violent retreat to the spiritual realm, with VFX Legion supervisor Ken Johnson managing said scenes on set filming, and the company would soon create a digital model of the actor from a 3D scan animated with retropologized graphics and textures, granting them the opportunity to employ ragdoll physics to make the movement fluid. This was a very taxing process, as the filmmakers wanted the movement of the digital model to showcase a loss of control, with the stunts combined animation needing to be slowed down to the point to where you could see the victim being forced into a void, while another difficult sequence saw VFX Legion modify in-home tracking shots using CGI, and saw the frame rate of the footage being edited to keep a constant, steady speed.
I'm not through yet.
While we're here, let's talk about the grabber's masks, because this was a vital objective for the filmmakers. mostly because Blumhouse Productions needed an excellent ad campaign because masks sell films. The script had originally involved a prototype of 2 worn leather masks painted with a smiling and frowning devil, but over time evolved as Derrickson had the idea of a mouthless mask which would convey despair, joy, and naivety in exaggerated form, similarly to those of tragic comic masks of ancient Greek theater. Derrickson and Blumhouse producer Ryan Turek acquired 5 visual effects companies for the mask making, which included Calisum Studios, a Pittsburgh-based studio that was founded by prosthetic makeup artist Jason Baker and the legendary Tom Savini, with Calisum's contributions being the closest to what the producers wanted of the illustrations submitted. Savini and Baker were brought on to make around 30 masks for gags, stunts, specific scenes, and pandemic mitigation, which was a process that took around a month, and while the approval of the sketches took about 2 weeks, soon followed by the construction of pieces in which took at least a day or 2. And the filmmakers certainly looked for plenty of inspiration, including ceramic masks, circus masks, antique dolls, William Hickey's Coney Island Barker from Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, William Castle's Mr. Sardonicus, and the exaggerated grin of Conrad Veidt's Gwynplaine in the silent film The Man Who Laughs. Meanwhile, but you thought I wasn't going to use that word now, did you? Derrickson thought up the mouthless mask following the hiring of Ethan Hawke, as he wanted to make sure that the actor was partially shown in parts of the Black Phone, and further designed the mask through the envisioning of scenarios examining the grabber's motivations, his deciding of masks when interacting with Finney, and so on. The fully developed concept soon surfaced from Savini's original sketches, at which point the filmmakers soon began contemplating age, consistency, and the application of each mask, later constructing the pieces from moldings of procured masks of Hawke's face, something which COVID complicated. Calisum conducted the face casting sessions within Hawke's home office in New York because the actor wasn't leaving no matter what, after which they sculpted the mask from their Pittsburgh studio before returning to New York for test fittings, with the finished pieces being created through a fiberglass resin mixture paneled with felt and foam padding. The filmmakers soon also produced replica masks for stunts out of lightweight rubber and latex. And now, let's briefly discuss the music before we get to the final verdict. Lastly, the music for the film was something that composer Mark Corvin, who had previously scored Cube, The Witch, and The Lighthouse, and would go on to do The First Omen, was attracted to after his agent and Blumhouse had connections, meeting with Scott Derrickson over Zoom, where he talked about how much he appreciated Corvin's work and asking him to join the party. Derrickson wanted the score to sound creepy, wanting something that was both modern yet vintage through synthesizer sounds, and during post-production, Corvin developed sketches that were submitted to Derrickson, where his approval would ultimately see the score going through or being dropped off a cliff. The time period was the subtext, which Corvin didn't wish to reflect that, but rather wanted to toy with the characters, utilizing friction mallets, which were these super balls being rubbed against certain items that was to get the creepy friction sounds meant for the grabber, and also put many strings into play which were performed in unconventional ways, while using an apprehension engine for certain sounds of friction. All other characters had minimal focus minus Gwen, who was given a lighter, feminine sounding soundtrack. In addition to synthesizers, Corvin made use of string instruments for the emotional moments in the climax, where he wanted it to be less melodramatic and more down to earth, compared to the stuff that would make your skin crawl, with the general vibe being to produce an entirely acoustic instrument meant for the making of choral soundscapes. However, Corvin chose to play it organically within a finger touch, in contrast to the computerized sounds that could be manipulated through a keyboard. And now, we get to the final verdict, so let's get going. The Black Phone is fantastic, and a great horror film in a year where there were also great horror films. Just see X as an example. It's got a lot of things that I find enjoyable, and certainly proves to me one thing. Scott Derrickson knows how to make a great horror film even 9 years after Sinister. To start, it's got a creepy atmosphere that showcases just how uneasy the town and its inhabitants are, and how even in a town like this, where there's already bad things happening to the main characters, the grabber makes things worse, and once you've been ensnared in his trap, getting out is a challenge. Northern Denver seems all too normal, but the moment you get into the grabber's basement, it might as well be a gas station or park bathroom, because it looks all damaged and rotted out, and it feels like a whole different world once the grabber has snatched you. And all you can do is rely on your wit and the mysterious eponymous phone, where the grabber's past victims try to help you defeat him in some form. And it's something I can get behind. It's unsettling and unnerving, but on the surface seems fine. Kind of like Blue Velvet, where it all looks nice, but then Frank Booth comes into the story and all hell breaks loose. And I like it.
I like it a lot.
Next, the visual effects aren't too bad, as they're very minimal and look good for what the filmmakers are trying to represent. The makeup effects on the grabber's victims are very good, and the CGI is actually cool, mostly because it's used not too much. And what little there is actually impressive. Namely the effect where Vance, one of the grabber's unlucky victims, is dragged into a void, which actually is a great effect and not just some comical misfire. Unless you dub in Goofy Scream, and then it just becomes a comedy. It all works, and makes for a very enriching experience, especially since there's also plenty of practical effects too. Then there's the acting, and everyone here gives a great performance, starting with Mason Thames as Finney Blake, the main protagonist who becomes the potential victim for the grabber, and certainly has the worst luck. As Finney, Thames conveys a lot of emotions, including fear, confusion, and eventually, bravery, as Finney certainly goes through quite the arc. At the start, Finney is bullied by everyone around him. His father is an alcoholic who takes his anger out in brutal fashion, likely brought on by the suicide of his mother, and he often turns to his friend Robin for protection, being unsure of himself and feeling like a coward in a lot of situations, meaning he's a wimp who can't stand up for himself. But as bad as things are, things get worse when the grabber abducts Finney, trapping him in his basement with nothing to do and seemingly no escape, never sure when the grabber will come in to terrorize him and potentially kill him. And the only thing he can do is rely on a special phone that acts as a hotline for the dead. As Finney listens to the advice the ghosts give him, he eventually takes everything they give him and eventually gives him the edge over the grabber, making Finney's survival more than just a way to escape, but to overcome his fears as well. By the end, Finney is a stronger man, and Thames excels in this film, giving an excellent first performance in what I hope is a very fruitful career, and considering his role in the live-action How to Train Your Dragon, looks good. As for Madeline McGraw, she gives a good performance here as Gwen, Finney's sister, who has psychic abilities that she inherited from her mother. As Gwen, McGraw gives a quality performance, conveying the psychic abilities very well, and you do buy it that she and Thames are brother and sister, and when Finney gets kidnapped, Excuse me. Gwen shows genuine concern, and when you see her visions, you share that concern. You also see her range from believing the abilities to being angry with them, proving that even she can doubt her own abilities at times. But soon puts her full faith in her abilities when Gwen and Finney finally reunite after Finney gets the upper hand. All around, McGraw is great, and she makes Gwen very likable. And now we've got Ethan Hawke as the Grabber, and he's amazing here as the main antagonist. Hawke practically becomes the Grabber, this unpredictable, creepy, and all-around unhinged character who, with his mask, makes him an overall mystery and keeps you guessing as to what he'll do next. You never quite know why he picks the victims he does, and you're never really sure if he knows about the phone or if he simply just ignores it. But either way, the Grabber is a psycho, and Hawke is excellent here, giving one of the definitive performances in this decade's horror, as well as his career. Other good performances include Jeremy Davies as Terrence, Finney and Gwen's dad, who at the start is a raging alcoholic with a fiery temper, who eventually grows as time goes on after Finney gets abducted, proving very three-dimensional. James Ransone as Max, the Grabber's cocaine-addicted brother who doesn't suspect a thing until it's too late. E. Roger Mitchell and Troy Rudisill as Detectives Wright and Miller, who are pretty much on the Grabber's trail. And Miguel Cazares Mora as Robin, Finney's best friend, who unfortunately becomes another one of the Grabber's victims. The film is also well shot, and considering Brett Jukiewicz already did Ready or Not and was also doing Scream 2022, it makes sense this would look great. It's very creepy and unsettling, with a distinct color scheme reminiscent of a sleazy crime thriller, and having a number of well-orchestrated and choreographed shots, making it fluid and smooth, making each shot count and capturing the scares very well. Plus, it makes great use of Super 8 reels for the scenes where the Grabber's victims are doing their normal activities before he snatches them, making it feel like a creepy lost home movie found in the garage of a snuff filmmaker, which could also be an homage to Sinister. It's great stuff, and it makes the film frightening on all levels. Finally, the music works very well, with Mark Corvin's score working exceptionally well with every scene in the film, giving the unsettling vibe that the film is going for. It makes all the scenes with the Grabber work on the freaky level, and adds to the suspense of every scene perfectly without missing a beat, in addition to having lighter sounding music with Gwen, and when Finney defeats the Grabber, having a nice blend of both. It creeps you out and spooks you, and it's great work from a composer who Robert Eggers definitely made a wise choice when he made both The Witch and The Lighthouse, the latter of which I want to check out sometime, same with the former. Also, any film that has Edgar Winter's Free Ride on the soundtrack is an automatic win. Trust me, that song is a banger. All in all, the music works, and makes for a joyfully creepy experience. And overall, The Black Phone is a great film, and a riveting experience through and through. The Black Phone had its premiere at Fantastic Fest on September 25th, 2021, and was mostly showcased in the festival circuit before finally being released worldwide in US theaters on June 24th, 2022, where it became a surprise box office success due to the fact that a lot of theaters that screened low-budget films were closed because of COVID, as studios expected lesser turnout due to this. Instead, it made $161.4 million on a budget that was estimated between $16 to $18 million, ensuring the film made its money back without failure. In addition, the film also had good reviews, who were split on the concept but did praise the performances, and even won Best Horror Film Award at the Saturn Awards, and both Best Wide Release Movie and Best Screenplay at the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, ensuring success all around. The film soon got explored further in the dream kill sequence found in VHS 85, and most recently, it got a sequel, which also got good reviews and was also financially successful. Overall, it did well. Not bad for a film like this. The Black Phone is awesome, and I highly recommend that you check it out. Whether you decide to pick it up on DVD or on Blu-ray, I have the Blu-ray DVD combo pack here. However you choose to watch it, it's a film that is definitely worth your time, and definitely worth picking up the call. It's very well shot, it's got an excellent musical score, it's got that nice atmosphere that feels very chilling, that when combined with the 70s time frame gives it an air of authenticity. It's got great acting all around, especially from Ethan Hawke as the grabber, like, great stuff right there. And really just in general, like, it's a very creepy movie and one that I really do enjoy watching. And I guarantee you will enjoy it too. And so with that, this concludes my review for The Black Phone. I hope you enjoyed it, found it entertaining and educational, and made you want to seek out this movie. And well, I hope you all have a good, happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. So go out, indulge in the candy, watch lots of horror movies, play some horror video games, go visit a haunted house, do whatever you want to do on Halloween. Dress up, wear a funny shirt like I am, do what you love on Halloween, and have a good one. And so, with that, I will catch you later. I'll see you... Huh? What's going on over there? Sometimes I don't even know what's going on anymore. It's all just confusing. What the heck? It's a bag. There's a note attached to it. Let's see what this thing says. Sometimes, man, I don't even know why I even bother. Let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry this isn't clear enough, but it says here, Dear Austin, I heard you do movie reviews, and because it's Halloween, and it's all about trick or treating, I figured I'd give you something. It's one heck of a treat, if I do say so myself, and you'll be in for a big surprise. Sincerely, BC. P.S. I used up all of your toilet paper. Well, that's not what it really says, but you get the point. Okay, what's inside this thing? This is probably a... What the... Oh, God. You gotta be kidding me. What is this? What's this whole... Go figure.
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
Jesus, what the fuck?